The galaxy had known peace once. That was before the Krell came. For 800 years, the dominion of Krell had spread across the stars like a disease. They were tall creatures, covered in thick green scales with eyes like yellow fire. They walked on two legs and carried weapons that could burn through metal like paper. Their ships darkened the skies of every world they visited. Their soldiers marched in perfect lines, crushing everything in their path. The Krell had a simple philosophy. All other species existed to serve them. Those who refused to kneel were burned. Those who tried to fight were made examples of. Entire planets had been turned to ash just to send a message. 200 star systems now belonged to the Dominion. The Morai, gentle creatures with soft blue skin and large dark eyes, had been slaves for 3 centuries. The Fennec, small fox-like people who had once been great scholars, now worked in Krell mines until their bodies broke. A dozen other species suffered the same fate. Nobody fought back anymore. Fighting was pointless. The Krell were too strong, too many, too brutal. Resistance meant death, and not a quick death. The Krell knew how to make examples last. Hope had died long ago. In the cold darkness between stars, far from any map system, a ship drifted. It had no power, no lights, no signs of life. It was old, older than the Dominion itself, built in a style that no living creature recognized. The name on its hull had faded, but some letters remained. Eternal Dawn, inside the ship. 12,000 bodies lay in frozen sleep. They had been there for over 1,000 years, dreaming dreams that lasted centuries. They did not know that Earth was gone. They did not know that the colony they were traveling to had been destroyed before they even left. They did not know that they were the last of their kind. In Cryopod 7 Alpha, a man named Taysun dreamed of fire. He saw Earth burning. He saw the sun expanding, turning red, swallowing everything. He saw his soldiers carrying children onto the ships. He saw his wife waving goodbye from a screen, telling him she would take another ship, that she would meet him at the colony. He had known she was lying. There were no other ships. He had carried that lie with him into the ice. Taysun was not a large man, but he had a presence that made others listen when he spoke. He had been a commander in Earth's defense force, responsible for the evacuation of millions. He had made impossible choices. He had left people behind. He had done what was necessary. Now he slept, and the universe moved on without him. Far away, on a hidden station called Sanctuary's Edge, the Morai Council gathered. They were the last free Morai, a few thousand souls hiding in the depths of space, always moving, always afraid. Their leader was an elder named Vessel of Hope. She was old, her blue skin turned pale with age, but her mind was still sharp. A scout had returned with strange news. A ship had been found. An ancient ship filled with frozen creatures. "They are not Krell," the scout reported. "They are something else. Something we have never seen." Vessel of Hope studied the images. The creatures were strange. They had no scales, no fur, no protective shells. Their skin looked soft, fragile. They had flat faces with small eyes. "They look weak," said one council member. "Perhaps," said Vessel of Hope. "But they built a ship that has survived 1,000 years. That is not weakness. What do we do with them?" This was the question that mattered. The Morai could let the ship drift forever. Whatever these creatures were, they would sleep until their systems failed and they died. It would be the safest choice. The Krell could not punish them for something they did not wake, but Vessel of Hope was tired of safe choices. Safe choices had kept her people slaves. Safe choices had let the Krell burn world after world while everyone looked away. "We wake them," she said. The other council members protested. This was dangerous. These creatures were unknown. They could be worse than the Krell. Or they could be better, Vessel of Hope replied. "We are dying. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. The Krell will find us eventually. They always do. When they come, we will have nothing to fight with. No weapons. No allies. No hope." She looked at the image of the sleeping creatures. "But if we wake them, we have a chance. A small chance. But a chance." The council voted. It was close, but Vessel of Hope won. A team was sent to the Eternal Dawn. They spent days studying the ship's systems, learning how to operate them. The technology was different from anything they knew, simpler in some ways, more complex in others. Finally, they found the controls for the cryopods. They started with Pod 7 Alpha. The ice melted slowly. The body inside began to warm. Monitors showed a heart beginning to beat, lungs beginning to breathe. Then eyes opened. Taesun saw light for the first time in 1,000 years. Everything was blurry. His body felt wrong, stiff, weak. He tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. A face appeared above him. Blue skin, large dark eyes. Not human. For a moment, Taesun thought he was still dreaming. Then the pain hit. Every muscle in his body screamed. This was real. Where am I? He managed to whisper. The blue creature spoke, and somehow he understood. They had translation technology, devices that converted languages in real time. You are safe, Vessel of Hope said. We found your ship. You were sleeping. We woke you. Earth, Taesun said. The colony. My people, Vessel of Hope hesitated. She did not know about Earth. She did not know about any colony. All she knew was what her scouts had found, a single ship drifting alone in the empty dark. You are the last, she said gently. We have searched. There is no one else. Taesun closed his eyes. He had known this was possible. He had known from the moment he entered the pod that he might never see another human again. But knowing and hearing were different things. He lay there for a long moment, feeling the weight of 1,000 years pressing down on him. Then he opened his eyes. How many of us survived? He asked. Nearly 12,000. Your ship kept you alive. 12,000. It was not enough to rebuild a civilization. But it was enough to matter. Wake them, Taesun said. Wake them all. And so the last humans opened their eyes to a galaxy they did not know, filled with horrors they had never imagined. They had lost everything. Their world, their families, their future, but they were still alive, and humanity had never been good at giving up. The days that followed were filled with pain and confusion. 12,000 humans woke from the ice, and each one had to learn the same terrible truth. Earth was gone. Everyone they loved was dead. 1,000 years had passed while they slept. Some cried. Some screamed. Some went silent and stayed that way. The grief was everywhere, thick like smoke, impossible to escape, but Taesun did not have time for grief. He had 12,000 people looking to him for answers. He had to be strong. Even when he wanted to break, he gathered his officers in the command room of Sanctuary's edge. Yuna was there. The chief scientist, a small woman with quick eyes who had spent her career studying alien biology. Dongho came too, the tactical officer, a big man with scars on his hands and a laugh that could fill a room. And Hannah, the medical officer, gentle and calm, who had a way of making people feel safe just by being near them. They were his core team. His family now. Vessel of Hope stood before them and explained the state of the galaxy. She showed them maps of the Dominion of Krell, 200 star systems, billions of slaves, 800 years of conquest. They cannot be defeated, Vessel of Hope said. Her voice was tired, the voice of someone who had accepted loss long ago. We have tried. Others have tried. The Krell are too powerful. The best we can hope for is to hide and survive as long as possible. Taesun listened. He watched footage of Krell soldiers in action. He saw their weapons, their ships, their tactics. He saw how they moved, how they fought, how they treated prisoners. When the footage ended, Dongho laughed. Everyone looked at him. Sorry, Dongho said, but he was still smiling. It's just that. These are the great conquerors? These are the monsters everyone fears? Vessel of Hope did not understand. You find them amusing? I find them predictable, Dongho said. He pointed at the screen. Look at them. They march in straight lines. They stand in the open. Their formations are rigid. They attack the same way every time. He shook his head. They fight like they have never faced real resistance, like they have never had to adapt. Yuna nodded. She had been studying Krell biology for days. They are cold-blooded, she said. Their bodies need heat to function. In cold environments, they slow down. Their reflexes suffer. Their thinking becomes clouded. She pulled up more data. Their eyesight is based on movement. They struggle to see things that stay still, and their hearing is limited to certain frequencies. Weaknesses, Taesun said. Many weaknesses, Yuna confirmed. Vessel-of-Hope shook her head. You do not understand. Yes, they have weaknesses. But they have numbers. They have weapons. They have ships. You have 12,000 people and one old vessel. What can you possibly do? Taesun looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at his officers. He saw the same thing in all their eyes. Not fear. Not despair, Danger? We did not survive the death of our world to bow to lizards, Taesun said. We are not going to hide. We are going to fight. Fight. Vessel of Hope stepped back. You will be destroyed. You will bring destruction on all of us. Maybe, Taesun said. Or maybe we will show this galaxy something it has forgotten. What it looks like when someone fights back. The humans began to work immediately. They could not match the Krell in numbers or firepower, so they would not try. They would fight a different kind of war. Dong-Ho called it asymmetric warfare. He explained it to the Mare and Fennec who volunteered to train with them. The idea was simple. You did not attack strength with strength. You found weak points. You struck fast and disappeared. You made the enemy afraid of shadows. The humans taught their new allies things they had never imagined. How to set traps. How to create diversions. How to use the environment as a weapon. How to attack supply lines instead of armies. How to make a small force feel like a large one. The Mare were scared at first. They had spent so long being victims that they had forgotten they could be anything else. Hannah worked with them. She understood that their wounds were not just physical. Centuries of slavery had broken something inside them. They believed they were weak. They believed they deserved their suffering. You are not weak, Hannah told them. You have survived horrors that would have destroyed most species. That is strength. You just need to remember it. Slowly, they began to believe her. Yuna developed new weapons and tools. She created grenades that produced blinding light and deafening sound, perfect for stunning the Krell. She designed cooling systems that could drop temperatures rapidly, slowing Krell soldiers to a crawl. She found frequencies that disrupted Krell communication equipment. Every weakness became a weapon. 3 weeks after the humans woke, a Krell slave collection ship arrived at Sanctuary's edge. It was routine for them. They had detected life signs and came to collect new slaves. They expected no resistance. They never did. The ship was called Dominance. It carried 200 Krell soldiers and empty cells for 5,000 prisoners. The commander was bored. This was easy work. He sent a message to the station. Prepare for collection. Any resistance will be punished with death. He received a response. Come and take us. The commander was confused. No one talked to the Krell like that. He assumed it was a translation. Error. He sent his soldiers. They marched through the station's docking bay in perfect formation, just like always. They moved toward the main corridors, weapons ready. Then the lights went out. The Krell stopped. They could not see in the dark. They activated their weapon lights, but the beams seemed to make the darkness worse, creating shadows everywhere. Something moved. A Krell soldier fired at the movement. He hit nothing, then something hit him. Dong-Ho and his strike team came out of the darkness like ghosts. They did not fight the way the Krell expected. They did not stand in formations and exchange fire. They came from every direction at once. They struck and vanished. They used the Krell's own confusion against them. The temperature dropped. Krell soldiers began to slow. Their movements became clumsy. Their aim got worse. Flashbang grenades exploded. The Krell were blinded, deafened. They fired wildly, hitting nothing, sometimes hitting each other. In 12 minutes, it was over. 200 Krell soldiers were dead or captured. The humans had lost 3. Dong-Ho stood over the Krell commander, who lay on the ground shaking from cold and fear. "What are you?" the commander asked. Dong Ho smiled. "We are humans. Remember the name." They captured the dominance intact. They freed 2,000 slaves from its cells. They sent a message across every frequency they could reach. The sleepers have awakened. The fight begins now. Across the galaxy, slaves heard the message. Most did not believe it. It sounded like a dream, a lie, another false hope, but some believed. And belief was a dangerous thing on the Krell throne world of Krellax Prime. Reports of the attack reached the High Command. They read them and dismiss them. Impossible. Exaggeration. No. Species fought like this. They were wrong, and they would learn that lesson soon enough. Word spread like fire across the stars. In slave quarters and mining camps, in factory floors and prison cells, whispers passed from mouth to ear. The sleepers. The humans. Creatures who had been frozen for 1,000 years and woke up fighting. Creatures who did not kneel. Most slaves did not believe it. They had heard promises before. They had seen rebellions rise and fall. Hope was dangerous. Hope got you killed, but the whispers did not stop on Fenara. The Fennec homeworld, an old scholar named Keeper of Words, listened to the stories. Fenara had been under Krell control for 500 years. The great libraries had been burned. The schools had been closed. The Fennec were allowed to live only because they were useful workers, small and quick. Good for jobs that Krell hands were too large to do. Keeper of Words remembered the old days. He remembered what his people had been. Scholars, teachers, seekers of truth. Now they were nothing when he heard about the humans. He did something he had not done in decades. He hoped Taesun knew that the attack on the dominance was just the beginning. They had won a small victory, but the Krell would respond. They always did. The question was how to use the time they had. He gathered his command team. "We need a bigger target," he said. "Something that will show the galaxy this is real. Something that cannot be ignored." "Fenara," Yuna said immediately. "The Fennec homeworld. It has a small garrison compared to other occupied worlds. And the Fennec were scholars once. If we free them, they can help us with intelligence, technology, strategy." Dong Ho studied the maps. "The garrison is in the capital city. Heavy fortifications. Orbital defense platforms." He smiled. "I like it." "The Fennec population is nearly 8 million, Hannah added. "They have suffered greatly. This will not just be a military operation. It will be a rescue mission." Taesun nodded. "Then we plan for both." They spent 2 weeks preparing. The humans trained their growing force of volunteers. Mara and Fennec and others who had escaped slavery and wanted to fight back. They gathered intelligence. They studied every detail of Fenara's defenses. The plan was complex. It had to be. They were attacking a fortified world with a fraction of the enemy's strength. Dong Ho would lead the ground assault. His job was to take the capital and destroy the garrison. He would use speed and surprise, striking before the Krell could organize a proper defense. Yuna had developed new tools for the mission. Drones that could jam Krell communications. Devices that could hack into their security systems. Biological agents that would affect only Krell, making them sick and weak without killing them. Hannah would coordinate medical teams and civilian protection. The humans would not become the monsters they were fighting. They would protect the innocent, even if it made the mission harder. Taesun would command from orbit, coordinating the space and ground forces. When the day came, the small fleet jumped into Fenara's system. 20 ships against a world. The Krell garrison commander was named Strongclaw. He was a veteran of many campaigns, proud of his record. When his sensors detected the approaching ships, he laughed. 20 ships? He said. They must be lost. He ordered his orbital platforms to destroy them, but the platforms did not respond. Something had gotten into their systems. They sat silent, useless. Strongclaw stopped laughing. The human ships descended toward the planet. Krell fighters launched to intercept them, but the humans flew differently than any enemy they had faced. They did not fly in formations. They scattered and regrouped, spinning and diving, always moving. Half the Krell fighters were destroyed before they understood what was happening. The ground assault began. Dong Ho and his teams dropped into the capital city at night. The Krell did not like the night. It was cold, and their eyes struggled with the darkness. The humans used this. They came silently, moving through shadows, striking without warning. Krell patrols vanished. Guard posts went quiet. Alarms were triggered, but by the time Krell soldiers arrived, the humans were gone, and only bodies remained. Strongclaw sent more troops into the streets. They marched in formation, weapons ready, searching for an enemy they could not find. The humans did not fight them directly. They set traps. Buildings rigged to collapse. Streets filled with smoke and confusion. False signals that led Krell units into ambush. The Krell were trained to fight armies. They were not trained to fight ghosts. By dawn, the garrison was in chaos. Strongclaw had lost contact with half his units. He did not know where the enemy was or how many there were. Every report was different. Some said there were thousands of attackers. Some said only dozens. Some said they were monsters. Some said they were demons. He decided to make a stand at the fortress in the city's center. He gathered his remaining forces, nearly 1,000 soldiers, and prepared to defend. The attack came from everywhere. Dong Ho led the main assault from the front, drawing the Krell's attention. While they focused on him, other teams struck from the sides and behind. They breached walls. They disabled power systems. They filled corridors with gas that made the Krell choke and stumble. The fighting was brutal. The Krell were strong and well-armed, but they were slow in the cold morning air, and they could not adapt to enemies who changed tactics every few minutes. Strongclaw fought until the end. He killed 3 humans himself before Dong Ho found him. They faced each other in the fortress command room. Strongclaw was wounded, bleeding from several cuts, but he still held his weapon. "What are you?" he demanded. "You fight without honor. You hide in shadows. You use tricks and poisons. This is not war. This is cowardice." Dong Ho shook his head. "This is survival. We do what works." "You will fail," Strongclaw said. "The Dominion will send 1,000 ships. They will burn your worlds to ash." They will try," Dong Ho said. "And they will learn what we learned a long time ago. You cannot win against people who refuse to lose." He gave Strongclaw a choice: surrender and live. Fight and die. Strongclaw chose to fight. It was over quickly. The liberation of Finara took 3 days. The Krell garrison was destroyed. The orbital platforms were captured. 8 million Fennec were freed. When the humans walked through the streets, the Fennec stared at them. They did not know what to think. They had never seen creatures like this. They had never seen anyone defeat the Krell. Keeper of Words approached Taesun. The old scholar's hands were shaking. "Is it true?" he asked. "Are we free?" Taesun put a hand on his shoulder. "You are free, and you will stay free. We will make sure of it." For the first time in 500 years, a Fennec cried tears of joy. Hannah and her medical teams worked day and night, treating wounds, providing food and medicine, helping people who had forgotten what it meant to live without fear. The humans did not claim Finara as their own. They did not raise their flag or demand tribute. They helped the Fennec form a new government. They shared technology and knowledge. They asked for nothing in return except friendship and alliance. The Fennec gave them both gladly. As Taesun prepared to leave, a message was intercepted from Krell Prime. Strongclaw had sent a final report before he died. It had reached the High Command. The report was short. "They don't fight like prey." Taesun read it and smiled. The Krell were beginning to understand, but understanding and accepting were very different things. And the true war was just beginning. On Krell Prime, the throne world of the Dominion, the Emperor sat on his seat of bones. His name was Dominant Supreme. He had ruled for 200 years. He had conquered 30 worlds himself. He was the largest Krell alive and the most brutal. His scales were dark as dried blood, and his eyes burned with a cold yellow fire. He did not like the reports he was reading. Fanara had fallen. A garrison of 3,000 destroyed by a handful of unknown creatures. The orbital platforms captured. 8 million slaves freed. And everywhere the same message spreading, the sleepers have awakened. Who are these humans? He demanded. His advisors scrambled to answer. They knew very little. The humans had appeared from nowhere. Their ship was ancient. Their technology was primitive compared to the Krell. They should have been easy to crush, but they were not being crushed. They fight without honor, one advisor said. They use tricks and deception. They strike from shadows and run away. Then they are cowards, said Dominant Supreme. Yes, Supreme One, but they are winning. The Emperor's claws dug into his throne. Winning, that word was not supposed to apply to prey. He made a decision. No more small responses. No more garrisons and patrols. He would send the Grand Armada. 500 warships. 50,000 soldiers. He would find these humans and burn them out of existence. Then he would burn every world that had helped them. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who defy the Dominion, he commanded. The Armada launched. It was the largest fleet the Krell had assembled in 3 centuries. It darkened the stars as it moved. Taysun knew it was coming. His spies had seen it. His scouts had tracked it. 500 ships against his 40. 50,000 soldiers against his 8,000. We cannot win a direct battle, Yuna said. The numbers are too uneven. Then we don't fight a direct battle, Taysun replied. He gathered his commanders and laid out the strategy. They would not meet the Armada in open space. They would not defend any single location. They would disappear. The coalition, as they were now calling themselves, dispersed. They scattered to hidden bases across a dozen systems. They became invisible. When the Krell Armada arrived at the coalition's main base, they found it empty. No ships, no people, nothing but abandoned stations and silence. The Krell admiral, a scarred veteran named Fleet Crusher, was furious. He had come to destroy an enemy, and the enemy had vanished. Find them, he ordered. Search every system. Check every moon. They cannot hide forever. The search began. It was exactly what Taysun wanted. The Armada spread out, trying to cover vast stretches of space. Ships operated alone or in small groups. Supply lines stretched thin. Communication became difficult. The humans struck. They attacked fuel depots in the night. They destroyed supply convoys. They ambushed isolated patrols. They never attacked anything large, never anything well defended. They hit soft targets, weak points, and then they vanished before the Krell could respond. Don Ho led many of the raids himself. He trained special teams, mixed groups of humans and aliens, all experts in fast attacks and quick escapes. They called themselves Fury Squads. One night, a Fury Squad hit a Krell communications station. They destroyed the equipment and left a message on the wall. We are everywhere. Another night, they captured a Krell supply ship carrying food for the Armada. They took everything and left the crew alive, drifting in escape pods. Let them go back, Don Ho said. Let them tell stories. Fear began to spread through the Krell ranks. Soldiers refused to go on patrol alone. Crews became nervous on their own ships. Rumors spread about the humans that they could see in the dark, that they could walk through walls, that they felt no pain. None of it was true. But the Krell believed it. That was what mattered. Fleet Crusher lost ship after ship. Not in great battles, but in small losses, one at a time. A destroyer here. A transport there. 50 ships in 2 months. Then 100. Then more. He could not find the humans. Every time he sent forces to one location, the humans attacked somewhere else. They were always one step ahead. Yuna was the reason. She had cracked the Krell communication codes. She knew their orders before they did. She fed them false information, sending them chasing ghosts while the real attacks happened elsewhere. She also developed biological agents. Diseases that affected only Krell, nothing fatal. Taysun had forbidden that, but things that made them weak and slow. Ships began to report crews falling ill. Soldiers who could barely hold their weapons. The Krell did not understand. Sickness was weakness, and they despised weakness. Sick soldiers were mocked and punished. Morale collapsed. Hannah watched the reports and felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. The Krell were suffering now as they had made others suffer, but she did not enjoy it. She knew that somewhere under those scales were creatures who had families and fears and hopes of their own. "We have to be careful," she told Taesun. "If we become too cruel, we lose what makes us different from them." Taesun agreed. "We fight to free people, not to become monsters. When this is over, the Krell must be defeated, not destroyed. Otherwise, we just start another cycle." Hannah nodded. That was why she followed him. 4 months into the campaign, something unexpected happened. Slave uprisings began on a dozen worlds. Slaves heard about the humans and decided to fight. They had no weapons, no training, no ships. But they had numbers and desperation and a fury that had been building for centuries. Most of the uprisings failed. The Krell crushed them brutally. But the Dominion had to pull ships and soldiers away from the hunt to deal with them. The Armada shrank. Dominant Supreme was enraged. He sent a message across the entire galaxy, broadcast on every frequency. "To all worlds, all species, all slaves," he declared. "Any world that harbors humans will be destroyed. Any species that aids them will be exterminated. There will be no mercy. There will be no exceptions. The Dominion will burn everything before it allows defiance." He thought this would frighten everyone into obedience. He was wrong. Taesun broadcast his own response. "We are the humans," he said. "We were frozen for 1,000 years, and we woke to find a galaxy ruled by fear. We did not ask for this fight. We did not want it. But we will not run from it. To the Krell we say this: your threats do not scare us. We have already lost our world. We have already lost everything. You cannot take anything more from us. To everyone else we say this: you are not alone. You do not have to be afraid. The Krell can be beaten. We have proven it. And if you stand with us, we will prove it again and again until the Dominion falls. This is not a war for territory. This is a war for freedom. And we will not stop until every chain is broken." The message spread. Worlds that had been silent began to send signals. Ships that had been hiding came forward. Species that had never spoken to each other started to talk. The coalition grew. 50 ships became 100. 100 became 200. The Krell Armada, once 500 ships strong, was down to half that number. Sick, demoralized, scattered across too much space. Fleet Crusher sent a message to Krellax Prime. "We need reinforcements. We are losing." Dominant Supreme stared at the message for a long time. Losing. The Krell did not lose. It was impossible, but the numbers did not lie, he recalled the Armada. All ships were to return to Krellax Prime. They would defend the homeworld and wait for the humans to come to them. He would make his stand there, and the humans would come. He was sure of that. What he did not know was that this was exactly what Taesun wanted. The final battle was coming. Everything had been leading to this. And humanity was ready. The fleet gathered at the edge of Krell space. 200 ships. Millions of fighters. Humans and Marai and Fennec and a dozen other species all standing together for the first time in history. They called themselves the Coalition of Free Worlds. Tae-Sun stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there was Krellax Prime, the heart of the Dominion. The end of the war. Or the end of them. He was not afraid. He had been afraid once, long ago, when he watched Earth die. He had been afraid when he went into the ice, not knowing if he would ever wake. Now there was no room left for fear. There was only the mission. Yuna came to stand beside him. She looked tired. They all did. "The virus is ready," she said. "Once we transmit it, their planetary defense grid will shut down. But it has to be disguised as a surrender signal. They have to accept it willingly." Taesun nodded. "They'll accept it. They want us to surrender? They need us too. And if it doesn't work, then we do it the hard way." Yuna smiled. "I like the easy way better." Dong Ho was already on a transport, heading for the ground assault. He had 3,000 soldiers with him, the best the coalition had. They would hit the capital while Taysun kept the Krell. Fleet busy. Hannah was coordinating the medical teams and the civilian protection units. When the fighting started, there would be chaos. Innocent people would be caught in the middle. She would save as many as she could. The plan was set. There was nothing left but to do it. All ships, Taysun said. Jump! The fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. When they reappeared, they were in the Krelak system. The Krell were waiting, 250 ships, everything they had left. They formed a wall between the coalition and the planet. Behind them, the defense grid hummed with power, ready to destroy anything that got through. Fleet Crusher commanded the defense. He had never lost a battle before the humans came. He did not intend to lose this one. All ships, attack formation, he ordered. Destroy them! The battle began. Space filled with fire and light. Ships burned and died. Explosions bloomed in the darkness like terrible flowers. It was chaos, beautiful and horrible at the same time. Tay-Sun did not try to match the Krell ship for ship. He used the same tactics that had worked before. His ships moved in groups, striking and retreating, never staying in one place. They hit weak points. They created confusion, but the Krell had learned. They adapted. They broke their formations, became more flexible. The battle became a grinding fight, both sides taking losses. We're not breaking through, Yuna reported. Their line is holding. Then we make them open it, Taysun said. He ordered a transmission sent to Krelax Prime, a surrender offer. Dominant Supreme received it in his throne room. He read it and laughed. The humans were begging for mercy, finally. Accept their signal, he commanded. Let them speak. The signal came through. It carried the surrender message. It also carried Yuna's virus. The virus spread through the Krell computer networks like water through cracks. It was subtle, designed to look like normal system processes. By the time anyone noticed, it was too late. The planetary defense grid went dark. Alarms screamed. Technicians scrambled. Dominant Supreme roared in fury. But nothing they did could bring the grid back online. It's a trick, he shouted. The coalition fleet broke through. With the defense grid down, there was nothing to stop them. Ships poured toward the planet. The Krell fleet tried to intercept, but they were out of position. Scattered by the battle, Dong Ho's transports dove through the chaos. Ground forces launched from a dozen ships, falling toward the capital city like rain. The invasion of Krelax Prime had begun. Dong Ho landed in the government district. His soldiers spread out immediately, securing landing zones, establishing positions. They moved fast. They had to. The Krell garrison responded within minutes. Thousands of soldiers poured into the streets. Tanks and walkers rolled forward. The air filled with weapons fire. The fighting was the worst Dong Ho had ever seen. The Krell were defending their home. They fought with a fury that matched the humans' own. Every street was a battle. Every building was a fortress, but the humans did not stop. They pushed forward, block by block, paying for every meter with blood. Above them, Taysun was fighting his own battle. The Krell fleet, desperate now, threw everything at the coalition. Ships died on both sides. Taysun lost count of the losses. Then something unexpected happened. Across the galaxy, the coalition broadcast human history. It was Yuna's idea. She had prepared the transmission weeks ago. It showed everything. Human wars. Human plagues. Human disasters, famines, genocides, near-dash extinctions. And survival. Always survival. It showed humans rebuilding after every catastrophe. Humans refusing to give up. Humans crawling out of the ashes again and again, bloody and broken. But still alive. The message was simple. We are the species that cannot be broken. It spread across every world. Slaves saw it. Soldiers saw it. Everyone saw it. The Krell saw it too. And for the first time, many of them understood what they were fighting. On Krelax Prime, the Krell defenders began to falter. The humans were taking terrible losses, but they kept coming. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They pushed forward like the tide. Dong Ho reached the Imperial Palace. The doors were sealed, guarded by the Emperor's personal guard. The most elite Krell warriors, he attacked anyway. The battle in the palace was close and brutal. Humans and Krell fought hand-to-hand, claw to blade. Dong-Ho led from the front, as he always did. He took wounds. He kept fighting. He lost friends. He kept fighting, finally. They reached the throne room. Dominant Supreme was waiting. He stood before his throne, a massive figure in ceremonial armor. He held a weapon that had killed 100 enemies. He was the Dominion. He was everything it represented. Dong-Ho faced him across the room. His soldiers held back. This was between them. You should have stayed frozen, Dominant Supreme said. You should have drifted forever in the dark. You could have been peaceful. Now you will die. Maybe, Dong-Ho said. But so will your Dominion. The Emperor attacked. He was fast for his size, faster than Dong-Ho expected. His weapon swung in a blur. Dong-Ho dodged barely. The blade cut his arm. He stumbled. The Emperor pressed his advantage. He struck again and again, driving Dong-Ho back. But Dong-Ho was not trying to match strength with strength. He was watching, learning, finding the pattern when the opening came. He took it. He dropped low, under the Emperor's swing, and drove his blade up into the gap between armor plates. The blade went deep. Dominant Supreme staggered. He stared at the wound, unbelieving. How? He whispered. Tae-sun stepped into the throne room. The battle above was over. The Krell fleet had surrendered. It was done. He walked past Dong-Ho and stood before the dying Emperor. You want to know how? Tae-sun said. You have conquered 200 worlds. You have ruled for 800 years. You have never faced an enemy who truly fought back. That is how. Dominant Supreme coughed blood. You are few. You were frozen. You have no empire. How can you win? Tae-sun looked at him for a long moment. Because we remember what it is to nearly lose everything, he said. And we will never let it happen again. Not to us? Not to anyone. The Emperor's eyes went dark. He fell. The Dominion of Krell died with him. 1 year later, the galaxy was healing. The Krell had not been destroyed. Tae-sun had refused to allow it. They had been disarmed. Their empire had been dismantled. But they had been given a place in the new order, the coalition of free worlds. As equals with everyone else, some of the freed species wanted revenge. They wanted the Krell to suffer as they had suffered. Tae-sun understood the feeling, but he would not allow it. If we do to them what they did to us, then nothing has changed, he said. We have to be better. Otherwise, what did we fight for? It was not easy. It would take generations. But it was possible. Hannah worked with former slaves, helping them heal. Yuna helped rebuild technology and infrastructure. Dong-Ho trained defense forces for worlds that had never been allowed to defend themselves, and Tae-sun lead. Not as a conqueror, not as a ruler, just as someone who had a vision for what the galaxy could be on the anniversary of their awakening. Tae-sun visited a memorial that had been built for Earth. It was a simple thing. Just a stone with names and a small flame that never went out. He stood before it for a long time. We made it, he said quietly. It's not what we planned. It's not what we expected. But we made it. A Fennec child approached him. She was young, barely old enough to remember the occupation. She looked up at him with large, curious eyes. Are you a human? She asked. Tae-sun smiled. Yes, what are humans? He thought about the question. He thought about Earth, and the ice, and the war, and everything that had brought them here. We're the ones who wake up, he said. The child considered this. Then she smiled and ran off to play. Tae-sun watched her go. Behind him, the flame burned on, a small light against the darkness. It was enough. It was always enough.